So we're nearly wrapping up with all of the things on our soil description form, and we kind of have the dreaded section left. So I don't know, we're not quite saving maybe not saving the best for last. We're definitely saving one of the harder things for last. I think there's something beautiful about the soil taxonomy section that we're going to take a look at. But in order to really understand all that beauty that can go with something as seemingly complex as soil taxonomy, you really have to take another class, which is the soil development class offered in the spring semester. So I'd highly encourage you to do that. What we're going to do is try to be able to functionally classify a soil, but to get into all the ins and outs about what everything means is a little bit hard. We're going to be staying on the higher levels of soil taxonomy. The things that we'll talk about lead to the classification of soil order. You can see soil order on the right hand side. Those are the 12 different types of soils you learned in your intro class. If we go back to the left here, the epipedon, the diagnostic horizon, and the diagnostic characteristics all feed into you being able to classify what soil order a particular soil is a part of. Okay, so in your intro class, you probably looked at a map showing the distributions of the different soil orders. There's a lot of cool soil formation stuff that's happening with these. Fun to talk about, but again, we're just going to stay at a pretty high level. So the good is being able to classify soil order. This is something where you can use this knowledge to communicate with other soils people all around the world. And if you say I have a mollisol or an alphasol or a ridosol, they'll know what that means, and they'll have a sense for what limitations you might have in using that soil. So it is very useful at the order level. Again, in order to get to that, here's maybe the bad news. We have to be able to classify the surface, which is called the epipedon, then the subsurface, which is called the diagnostic horizon, and then document any characteristics in addition to those surface and subsurface horizons that might be important in that classification of soil order. Okay, so the way that it works. You start with a horizon description. You get the depth, the textures, the features. You've already done all of this in the field. Let's say, for instance, you have a BT horizon, something that's really common around here. Now we go to that next level of diagnostic horizons and characteristics. So we can look at all of our features and say, are any of these things diagnostic? Diagnostic just means that they're indicating something bigger, the soil order that this particular soil belongs to. Well, a BT could potentially be an argillic horizon. Argillic is one of several diagnostic horizons. It could be called argillic if you have 15 centimeters of clay accumulation. So not all BT horizons might not meet that 15 centimeter criteria. You also have to have high cation exchange capacity. You have to have, and that just means how many sites can you exchange cations or exchange cations, and then you have to have a high base saturation. Base saturation has to do with calcium, magnesium, potassium, sodium, and other ions that are attached to those clays. Okay, so there's extra criteria to call an everyday ordinary BT horizon an argillic horizon. But if you can do that and call it a argillic horizon, now you can get to the order and suborder level, and you would find out that alphasols are soil orders that are characterized by these argillic horizons. It's one of the diagnostic horizons of an alphasol. This is the ugly part, because when you really get in and look at all of the criteria to call something like a BT horizon an argillic horizon, it's like dense criteria, page after page after page. This is only just part 1 or 2, and there's a lot of criteria. So it takes a lot to really get to learn the ins and outs. We're not going to be able to do that. Thank goodness they've kind of condensed it, and we'll be using this kind of more illustrated is nice, pictures, right? Illustrated guide, condensed, kind of the most important criteria, rather than the, all the exceptions to the rules type stuff. So we'll get a chance to practice with this. Again, we have two different things. I just gave you an example of a subsurface horizon argillic. We also have what are called epipedons. Epipedons are the surface horizon. Thankfully, there's only like 3 or maybe 4. None just means there is no surface horizon. And that's a lot easier to deal with. It's all these things that can happen in the subsurface that are really hard. And in your manual, I've actually gone through and explain kind of the high level of these. So epipodon, surface horizon, and there's three types, or none being the fourth one. Maulic is thick and dark. Histic is organic, and ochric means that it fails. It's too light and too thin. So that one's not so hard. All these subsurface ones, though, there's a lot. This is just 2 of them. But what I've tried to do is condense it down to a sentence. Elbic, light colored, 1 centimeter or more, we would recognize it as an E horizon. But then I gave you the specific criteria that you would need. So we'll probably try to use what I put together in your manual to functionally kind of figure this stuff out. And then we get to the soil order level. That's the highest level, again, of soil taxonomy. For each of the soil orders, what I've done is indicated the epipedon that you need to have if a certain one is required, and then any subsurface diagnostic horizons that you would find, and then maybe any things that might be common but aren't required. So you've got that criteria there. In no way can you memorize this stuff. It would just be a gigantic use of brain power and not something that I really think would be productive. I think some things you'll pick up on, like BT is argillic, just because of what we have in this area. But you're always going to be able to use those notes that you have. I think it would be more important for you to just be able to use it, to figure it out, rather than memorize it.